Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Eli Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome, Chaya.
Thank you.
Chaya Sara. I'm sitting here with Chaya Sara Gurewicz, and I will let you tell us what you do and who you are. The only background I'll give is that two people within a couple days of each other said to me, you got to get Chaya Sara Gurewicz on your podcast. And then after we spoke and the date was scheduled, a guy I know reached out to me and said, there's this woman who I worked with and she was amazing. And I feel like, I don't want to miss the word, but I think he said his life is transformed and will never be the same. And you have to get Chaya Sara Gurewicz on your podcast. I don't know if she'll agree to do it. And I said, well, we already have a date scheduled, so hopefully she'll be here. So you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just telling Yassi, like, this is my first real time bringing any of my work out in the public, really. I mean, yeah, I put it on Facebook here and there, but even not so much. Because I've watched so much go down around this kind of work. And I've just been kind of keeping it quiet, but we're quite a few hundred people already doing this work, and I run the Awakening Retreat, which is it branches into all different areas, but mostly it's about waking up. It's about becoming aware of how you're showing up, what you're doing, and expecting different results, and really looking at your patterns, and all in with the witnessing, with community, with good people, with no airs, no veils, nothing outer. Everything is very raw and real in everything we do. And it's an incredible movement, and it's just growing and growing and growing and spreading, and we don't even advertise.
So you founded it, and you run it.
Yeah.
The Awakening Retreat.
Yeah.
So how much can you share about it? I know with a lot of retreats, people don't like to say too much because the more you say, the more it confuses someone. You kind of have to experience these things.
Yeah.
In order to experience
So
it.
there's several different kinds of retreats I do. I mean, we can make it into a mini retreat and a 1-day retreat and a little retreat and a 2-hour retreat and a breath work and a get together and a fire circle and nature. I do nature retreats, helping people heal in nature, tracking their patterns, using nature as a metaphor. I love that work. That's like kind of the love of my life. And then the kind of retreat that I'm doing currently, which is always metamorphosizing as the needs are changing, is a very deep dive healing experience. It's what most people describe it as 20 years of therapy in one weekend. So it's effective. It works. It's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful community. I love group work. The group really creates the magic, and that's what I base everything on. It's like there's no hierarchy in our retreats. It's never like there is the leader, there is the staff, and you're the participant. It's like we are all on the floor crying together. We are in this together. I will get as vulnerable about myself as anybody else, and I think that gives people permission to do what they need to do to get it out,
to truly heal.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. It's an ad, but it's not an ad because I was paid. It's an ad as an expression of love and appreciation for someone who did a lot for me and this podcast specifically. I'm talking about Ryan Carter from Scarlet Row. Many of you may know Ryan because he was a familiar face in the early days of the podcast, but much more than being a familiar face, he was kind of the juice behind the podcast from the very first day I had the idea. He's the one who pushed it from not just online webinars, but for consistent content, then going from audio to video. Everything you see here was his concept, his idea, and his execution. In addition to this podcast, Ryan has done a ton of work for me in my companies, from creative design, photography, brand strategy, brand development, creating video content, creating presentations, photography, and much, much more. So you name it, in that space, you want to create content, he's your guy. Even if your idea is just an idea. and you don't have it all worked out, bring it to Ryan. He'll help turn that idea into something you can be proud of. Reach out to Ryan at scarletroad.com. And the retreat is offered to both men and women.
So it's been for women for many years, and the men were kind of in the background, and watching their wives get all enlightened and wanting the work as well. So we started the men's workshop 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago.
How long have you been doing this?
Just under 10 years.
Wow. And this is the first time hearing of you. So yeah, it was really...
Yeah, it's been a little underground. I do have a Rav that I ask all my questions to, but I really have...
Rav.
A Rav, yeah.
Right.
I have a Rav that I ask a lot of questions to, but other than him, I really haven't wanted it to be in the public eye, because it's pure and sacred and it feels right to me, so I do it.
Right, you're here now, though.
I'm here, yeah.
Right, with the microphone and cameras.
I'm here with the microphone and cameras, and hello, everybody. And I just hope that my kavana is that whatever we do should help somebody, and to know that they're not alone, and that there are people that can be real and that can also be from and real and raw. I've had on my retreats, at one retreat, we had, I think, 4 women who had had abortions, and they were all beautiful from women, and they were able to say it and to share it and to cry and to heal it, and the whole group was holding them, and they didn't worry about their kids shidduchim. They worried for themselves, and it's like in our community, if you're being vulnerable and real, you're in.
In your community.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a global community. It's people everywhere. We've just now opened a local breathwork group so that we can be
local
accessible.
In South Florida.
Yeah, so we can
Cool.
be accessible to the locals, so they don't have to come to a whole retreat to get a taste and to get some healing and some good work.
Do you facilitate those?
Mm-hmm.
Neat. Cool. The transformational holotropic breath work, those,
Mm-hmm.
That's that? Very cool.
Yeah, rebirthing breath work.
Cool. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Neat. How did you get into this work?
Okay. Which part?
Actually, before I go there,
Yeah.
I don't think, maybe there isn't an exact answer, a verbal answer that you can express, but if there is one, I'd love to hear it. So what changed? For so many years, you were underground, intentionally not wanting to make too much noise. And I wouldn't consider this making a ton of noise. It is a public forum and it is a public podcast.
So nothing changed. I didn't really ask for this. I did not call for this. My son had a guest over, and he was like, "I'm getting you on Eli Nash's show." And I was just like, okay. Like, I didn't look for this. I wasn't, I want to be on this podcast. I want to be on that podcast. I've been asked, and I just don't really follow through so much. So I don't have an agenda of being here, but the wind brought me here, Hashem brought me here, and I'm here. I'll show up wherever I needed.
So it feels right to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. It's good.
Hopefully get a message to someone, let them know they're not alone.
And after after I saw your TED Talk last night, I was like, I better find out who this guy is. I was like, all right, I can be vulnerable if you can be vulnerable. And yeah, so.
Right. There's doing it in a retreat, which is real and hard and difficult and painful. And in some ways, it's a different challenge, some ways more challenging than a group of strangers.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
there is that.
A huge, yes.
And then there's doing it on, with this. It is.
Yeah.
There is a difference. They're each easier and harder in different ways.
Yeah, I think the challenge for me today was like, I don't like to feel my ego. I don't use my ego in my work. If I feel my ego, I make a mistake. The very first person I ever facilitated in a retreat setting, I messed up because the entire retreat, I just kept having a story about her in my head, like the way she was looking at me. I don't know. I was just like, she thinks I'm stupid. She thinks I'm stupid. Every time I was talking, she was just kind of looking at me. And then when I got up to to facilitate her, I totally messed up. And I was
What does facilitator mean?
like it was her turn to get facilitated to talk about her story and
Oh,
to
got it.
have us create a healing experience for her. And I messed up. I just like I went in and it didn't go. And I was like, realized at that moment, I'm in me. I can't be in me if I'm doing this work. So I've learned how to leave me behind. Like I was telling you before, like learn a million modalities and then leave them all behind and just show up and create that space for Hashem to just come and do it, or for the healing that wants to happen. So the hard thing for me this morning was feeling my ego and asking myself, like, what is happening? Why am I feeling this way? How do I want to show up? And facing parts of me that I've long ago, um, you know, made peace with. And so I did some breath work. I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be okay. So I did a bunch of breath work and I'm good.
You feel
I'm
it.
here. Now I'm like, ego
Welcome.
gone, just showing up back to
Welcome,
me,
welcome.
on myself.
Well, thanks for coming here. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks. Thank you.
So how did you get into this work?
So the way I got into this work was when I was born. When I was 4 years old, I had my first facilitation, I would say, with a relative who was in and out of rehab and who was staying with us for a while. And I loved her. Still love her very much. And she was leaving our house, and I felt like she was going with bad people. And I told her, I begged her, like, don't go with them. I was 4 years old. And I felt like empowered and successful. And I think from that moment, I started to realize like I could make a difference. And I just started using that skill, look, whenever I thought it was necessary. So I got smacked in the face a lot along the way. I think I worked out of permission many times, but I kind of just did what had to be done and didn't really care about myself or didn't think about what the repercussions were. I just dived in all the time. So that was just my way. And that's really where it started. And just like then I did wigs for a long time, shaitels.
Okay.
And so I was working with women and sort of like I was the shaitel macher, but I would really be able to hear them, really hear what was going on in their lives. And I would do my little facilitations, and I learned a lot of healing modalities. Uh, I attended the Woman Within many years ago, which is like the mothership of all the retreats. And then
The Woman Within?
the Woman Within
Not familiar with it. Okay.
International. It's like the mother. It's how the show first started, actually, from the people that were going to Women Within. The women were going, and then the women tried going. The men tried going also, and it just wasn't the same. And so they created Call the Chauffeur, uh, in which I don't really know enough about it, but it wasn't the same. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, just got
So
tripped
you
off on
so you
Call the Chauffeur.
attended One Within, and then from there got into.
I attended the Women Within, then I staffed for them. I was in a circle. We did like an e-circle that was like follow up. It was basically like mental health boot camp, just getting together with a group and going over the tools over and over, taking responsibility for your life, taking responsibility for everything you think, everything you say, for all your projections. And we worked that out in the group. It was a very tough group. It was very boot camp like group. Like if I would come 5 minutes late, someone would be crying and just saying, I feel insignificant because you were late. And that makes me feel that I don't matter, So I did that for like 14 years.
Wow.
So I learned how to be in safe relationship to others, not projecting, noticing when I'm telling myself stories, and just being responsible, healthy and responsible. And then ended up doing retreats, starting with nature-based life coaching. Did I tell you this? I told you that. Okay. Yeah. So going back to the question, I feel like I'm on a tangent.
No, how you get
into
this?
Oh yeah.
So earlier you had mentioned about nature also, and now nature-based life coaching. So what is this? You spoke about it as your core passion or your thing you're most passionate about.
Yeah. So, um, where should I start? Just through a series of events, I found Sage Fire Institute, which at the time, I don't think they're running anymore, but at the time, it was like an incredible experience for me coming home to nature. Sort of, I always feel like when people become Balchuvas, like they're learning what's already theirs, right? So I felt like that about the nature learning. It was like nature's already ours, it's already here to use. And when I was little, I was very connected with it, and then kind of lost it along the way because it wasn't an integral part of my schooling or my life, and came back to it, and then took a nature-based life coaching training and started to
So what does that
take
look like?
groups. What does what look like? A nature retreat?
Yeah, nature retreat or nature-based life coaching. What's going on?
So it's building relationship with nature as a metaphor, and noticing. It's all about noticing and awareness. And um like we have become a very subconscious people, like subconscious community. We don't even notice. Like you're chugging your coffee, walking to your car in the morning, thinking your thoughts, and you don't notice that there's like birds in the tree that are just like, "Hello," you know, cheer up, look at the sky, look at nature, look at this, listen to the sounds. Our senses have dulled. We're sort of living in this tiny little 10% of our brain, and we've lost a lot of our senses, a lot of our feelings, a lot of our um, being able to sit with ourselves and feel, and also using nature as a metaphor. Kind of like I'll take a group in nature and just say, everyone choose a tree that represents you. And then I give them like some prompts, dialogue with the tree, sit with the tree. Why does this tree remind you of yourself? It's so much fun. It's very mystical, and it's very connecting. It's a lot of fun, and it's sort of also like nature teachings in nature. They call it coyote mentoring, because coyote is sort of the trickster in nature. You see a coyote and you follow him into the forest, and because you like, there's a coyote, but then you get into the forest and he's gone, but he's led you to this beautiful place. So nature nature teachings are sort of tricking people into learning, and it's just tricking people into healing, tricking people into learning. Like, you just feel better when you're in nature, right? You feel good. Why?
It kind of comes in under the radar, like you
Yeah,
don't even know it's there.
exactly. I mean, that is the ancient ways that they used to teach children, take them out to the forest. The elders would teach the children. Like, we've lost all of that. And now kids sitting in a classroom. You want me to get started on
Yeah,
this
of
one?
course. Yeah. We got a little bit of it here. I don't know if people think the background is real or fake, but it
This
is real.
background is amazing. Like, your podcast does not do this justice. Wow. Wow. It is just so beautiful. Yeah. So if you really, sit out there and be still, you can really connect deeply to yourself and me. We are nature. We're all part of this interwoven.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
You
It's
were
kind of
going
cool.
somewhere and then
I don't know. I'm going everywhere. I have total ADHD.
the nature didn't cure that.
No, nothing cures that.
Nothing cures
Nothing
ADHD.
cures that.
Right. Not if we don't. So how has it changed over the years? What you've done, meaning you got into this. You're saying 10 years ago. We got into this very young, but in terms of the formal retreats, it's called the Awakening Retreat. You said
Yeah. So
so that launched 10 years ago.
that launch no that launched the whole retreats launched about 10 years ago,
Got it.
and then it morphed. I got hired by Journey to Home. Do you know Journey to
Mm-hmm.
Home?
Yeah.
I got hired by them to run their women's department for a couple years, and then I branched off onto my own and just opened the Awakening Retreat, because I wrote my own program when I was there, so I took it with me and just
Gotcha. Is it
did it.
mostly people from religious backgrounds who are coming to work with you?
It's not limited to that, but it is mostly religious people, but anybody can come. And we've had reform, conservative, not religious. We've had, people who aren't religious anymore, who used to be ultra religious, aren't
Mm.
religious. So that it doesn't matter. I always tell people this is not
Jewish?
Jewish, but if someone's not Jewish, they could come. But it's
Right.
why. I mean, it's kosher and Shabbos. But I always tell people this is not a religious weekend, so to speak. There's no judgment here. But we do Shabbos and kosher, and we have davening times. But if you don't daven, like, please do something quietly. Don't take that as a time to go on your phone. Take it as a time to meditate. Um, and it's our belief that as you feel more whole, you're going to feel closer to God. You're going to feel closer to truth. And so it's our business. It's not our business, your religious level. It's our business to provide you a place that you can do the healing of your life.
Neat. How has your own relationship with religion changed through this work or your own
My own
journey with it?
relationship to religion. This is really a really good question. Um, my relationship to religion has morphed many, many, many times so far, and it's still morphing. And even just my whole relationship to God, my whole relationship. As you know, my husband passed away from COVID 3 years ago. So at the time, I was running an online course called the Tefillah Prayer Circle, where we were talking about prayer and the power of prayer. And it was like, to me, that was like my carbon. I was like, it was hard to do and keep it going. And I did it. And I devoted so much to that for 4 years. And then that happened. And I was like, who is God? I don't even know you. Like, my God wouldn't do this to me, you know? So who is God? So I couldn't open a sitter for a long time.
Huh.
So it's been, a process. And I think it's a lifelong journey. Relationship with, trust. We are a people who know pain and the Holocaust, and it's hard. It's hard. It's an avoda. I think it's an avoda.
I heard from someone that the term Baal Tshuva, right, means master of return. And we wouldn't master something we only did one time. So often we think of Baal Tshuva as someone who wasn't religious, then became religious. And he was saying that no, a Baal Tshuva is someone who's continuously returning because that's how they've mastered it.
Yeah. Yeah. Last night I was on the phone with a client, and she was talking to me about, what was it? Her feelings of mistrust in this world, and her feelings of I don't deserve. And I was just like, where's God? Like, where's you and God? And it all came out. And this is someone who's like, a religious woman with a nice family and all the trappings, but inside she's like doesn't believe she deserves. She doesn't believe she's part of God. She doesn't believe in God, really. I mean, she doesn't trust. And so I was just like, write a letter to God right now, and like a real one, like how you feel right now. And she did, and she read it to me. It was unbelievable. I was like, can you pick out the key words here? And it was like, no trust, no deserving. It was really, really sad. And that was just like scratching the surface on, it wasn't a religious conversation. It wasn't that kind of session, but it turned into that. And then this is an old operating system. This is an old way of showing up. This is an old, very old stuff. And it comes from a lot of experiences and pain and seeing the world and
What's an
seeing
old
what really
operating
happened.
system?
This, I don't deserve, I'm not enough, you hate me, you don't want good for me, I don't trust the future. I don't trust the future.
Right. I was speaking to someone the other day and I said, and they were putting themselves down. And I said, well, like, why are you talking about yourself like that? And I said, the response was almost like, why would I, why would I, it's, it's like immodest to speak nicely about yourself or well about yourself. And I said, but you didn't make yourself. Like, you're not putting down your work or putting up your work if you're saying anything nice about yourself. This person happens to believe in God and say they believe in God and is comfortable in that expression of it. But for whatever reason, not recognizing that they themselves are a creation of this God, and putting themselves down is putting down that creation, meaning the
Yeah,
creator.
absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's Tanya, right?
Possibly.
S-
I skipped that class.
You're abstinent. Yeah, so I have this sort of a new, things are coming to me. Like like the reason I don't listen to so many podcasts and listen, I kind of like, I'm in a very special situation, I feel, and learning such deep lessons, no one should know, but like loss, tragedy, it's epic. It's epic, and it's hard to, the regular rules that I've always lived by don't work anymore. Like
Epic is a
almost nothing.
fascinating word. It's
Yeah?
a fascinating choice of words for grief.
Yeah. It's 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 an epic shattering of the vessels. It's an epic shattering of everything a person ever knew or ever thought, or and it's been such a journey. So I came up with this. So I need to meditate a lot inside myself and just come up with my own, because I think I even wrote to YY one day, and like, there's not enough in the Torah for people who went through tragedy. Like, there's not enough. I'm not feeling guidance. I'm not feeling a lot of guidance, and maybe that's my chisaron that I'm not finding it, but I'm sort of creating it. So I just came up with this idea. Like, I know Yitzias Mitzrayim is like a DNA of this world. It's like kind of a DNA. It gives us clues into what we're here for. And like, we're supposed to remember it every single day.
Mm.
And what I've come up with is like, that has created a save me mentality. Next year in Jerusalem, it's going to get better. God's going to save me. Someone save me. There's this disempowerment. And
You're saying the idea of kind of next year in Jerusalem, maybe not what was intended, but the way it's communicated, understood,
yeah,
is a very gullus mentality.
it's like a victim, very victim, like someone will save me one day. And I sort of came up with a new something that works better, that makes more sense to me,
Mm.
which is like remembering every day who put us in Mitzrayim and why. So God took us out of Mitzrayim, but who put us in Mitzrayim and why did he put us in Mitzrayim? Good question.
Yeah, go
Like, we don't talk
ahead.
about that. So I don't know if this is true, but actually someone told me that they saw this in a sikha, so could be. That I feel like he put us in Mitzrayim so that we would struggle to get out. So when in that struggle, we get empowered and we feel like we're co-creating our own geula, and like we're co-creating all the time. He lets us feel like we did it. So we took us out. We go in, we struggle, and when we come out, we feel like amazing. We feel like super a superhero. We feel like supernatural.
Right. You're saying we feel like, but there is an element of it that is there's a difference, right? There's a difference between inheriting money and earning money. I mean, it's a different
Yeah, yeah. And I
different thing.
think there's something in the struggle. Like, this is olam hatikun, right? This is not the good place. This is the hard place. This
Right.
can be a hard place. And we are here to make it better. He gave us we have permission to heal it. We have permission to fix it. We have powers to fix it. We have survival skills. We have a mind. We have a higher consciousness.
With nature.
Yeah. And we have a soul. And so in that struggle is that edge of all we are. So you're sneezing on the truth. Yes.
Lower mine.
Anyway, I don't know how we got on there, but that's how it flows.
I need to have one more sneeze.
Amen.
Wow. Maybe we'll keep that part in. You'll see it's unedited, unscripted. You were talking about your own relationship with religion and kind of and davening, so I wanted to understand it. The 4-year tefillah program you were running was leading up to your husband's death,
Yeah.
correct? One second, I got another one.
Okay.
Oh.
Do what you got to do.
It's kind of like right there. You know that feeling? I don't want to stop a sneeze. I want it out. Oh, okay, it's good. Okay, you were talking about the I'll take back the question so they can edit it. So earlier you were talking about um, in your journey with religion, how for about 4 years you were running this tefillah program. Is that what you call it, tefillah circle?
Yeah.
And you stopped that when your husband passed.
Yeah.
Got it. And not only did you stop that, you stopped praying yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I tried to, but I had a very hard time opening any sitter.
Right. No, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You may kill me for it, but in my 20s, I stopped wearing tefillin completely because I felt like every single time I was putting on tefillin, when I didn't put it on, or if I was, oftentimes I'd put it on late in the day, I felt a sense of guilt. And I thought, what a bizarre thing to do. Oh, I'm guilty, so let me pray. Let me approach you from guilt. It just felt inappropriate. So I said, let me not do it so that I won't feel guilty not doing it. And then when I do it, it's not coming from guilt. That was my way of dealing with it. Maybe there was a breathwork session that could have processed that easier. But that was my way of approaching it. So I get it completely. It wasn't coming from a judgmental place. I think it's actually an honest relationship with prayer. It feels to me very, very real versus I can wake up every single day and just pray. Maybe I can't pray right now. Who am I praying to?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just in Muncie and having this conversation with a young Hasidic guy, long payas, white shirt, black pants, and admitted to me that he hasn't davened in years, and just was weeping, just feeling guilty, feeling like God doesn't want me, because I made mistakes, and He doesn't want my prayers. He doesn't want anything from me, and we just. Someone else was in the room when this sort of came out, and he was like, "You just told the Lubavitch lady you don't put on tefillin." That was not a smart idea. So 3 hours later, and I get a tefillin picture from him every day. It's like mitzvahs are opportunities. It's like little Torah Chaya Sara. Like I might be wrong, and I'm like I don't take responsibility for what I'm saying, and like I'm not preaching. I'm just saying what I'm finding out on my journey. Feeling like mitzvahs are opportunities to, everyone talks about hiring frequencies and becoming supernatural and manifesting and all this stuff. Well, I think mitzvahs are an opportunity to hire your frequency, an opportunity to refine. And if you look at them as opportunities, as instead of the guilt and the shoulds, I think that's just not where I am. I can't be there. I still have a lot of remnants of it. I can't be there anymore.
Right.
It's too much. It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't to me either. I certainly don't want to teach any of that to my kids. I don't want to leave them with that idea of it at all.
Yeah.
So I found it, what I found in my own journey is how much of the religious ideas I needed to forget or let go of in order to connect and have a relationship with God. And that's kind of sad if you think about it.
I think you're on an incredible journey of your unique self. And that's what I hope for. I mean, Hashem made every person different, and when you bring your uniqueness to the world, then you're really making a difference. And it just seems to that I'm just watching you with the things that you're sharing, and just seeing like, wow, you're really following your own North Star, your own way. And I think there's room for that, more than room for that. I think that's what's going to ultimately heal the world is when you do it your way. Do it your way. Bring it back to the community. Bring it to make the world a better place.
I think the fact is that, and this is indisputable, is that there's a lot not working. And I mean, you can't argue with that. There isn't a home who doesn't have children who are suffering tremendously. I haven't met any. There isn't, and there's some who are, as someone gets further into the guts of the community, and it's not only the Jewish community, it's really the whole world. As someone gets further into the guts, we learn of the pain and the suffering and kind of the uniformity of that. It exists anywhere. And sometimes the most pain is where someone doesn't see the pain. That's, when you get further into it, you're like, wow, your life is such a mess, and you think it's normal. That's almost the most painful parts of it. So for me, it's kind of become obvious that searching for it, and that's why we call this the In Search of More podcast, is the only way, because if there's someone who's found it, I don't think the world would look the way it looked.
Agreed 100%.
I think this is it's an infinite game. It's a complicated game. Life is it's tough to figure out. And maybe there are some people who have, but certainly not in a way that could be communicated to enough people to get enough people doing it the right way that,
you're preaching to the choir. Like, absolutely. I'm with you. And I'm always looking for, like, what do we need to fix? What do we need to change? What do we need? How do we make it better? How do we make it more of, like, the truth of what it is, instead of, like, we've wrecked it.
We've wrecked a lot.
Like the scales. I have a big thing about the scales. I'm like, get me started. Like, I'm like a wind-up doll. If you get me started, like at first grade, you get the scale to color in, like the coloring page of a scale.
Okay.
They do this in every school. Did you get it? Did you remember that?
I think so, but it was a scale of, like, the mitzvahs and averos.
Yeah, it's like, here's a scale, color it in. If you do more mitzvahs, and you're going to have a good year. If you tip the scale to the averas, and you're going to have a terrible year. And it's just bull. It isn't true. Why are we teaching children things that aren't true? You can't control the outcome of your year. That's not what this is about. That's not what Rosh Hashanah is about. Yeah, you can daven, and I'm sure again, Torah Chaya Sara, like, I'm not preaching. I'm just saying it makes me really angry to see kids who are learning stuff that's not sustainable. Because what are they they learn that, and then they see this amazing rabbi and his beautiful family who had something happen to them. Then they're like, oh, did he not do enough mitzvahs? Like, this isn't sustainable education.
Right. I feel like most of us have learned about God as a 3 or 4 year old, and they communicated in the best way they could to a 3 or 4 year old, and then they didn't update it as we grew up. And they say, okay, now you're 8. Let me speak.
Most 3 or 4 year olds actually have their own really beautiful relationship with God until they go into school.
Right.
Right.
Right. I meant it more from like a religious practice.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, as someone gets older, you can communicate these practices in much more subtle, nuanced ways. Like, for example, I've spoken a lot about porn addiction, and one of the things I'll always, like, when people are struggling with a porn addiction, like, God doesn't need to punish you for watching porn. This idea is crazy. You're being punished by watching porn. I mean, that's it. Go watch it and see how you feel afterwards.
Right.
The shame, the disgust, the self-loathing, the demoralization. And if it works for some people, God bless them. I'm talking to the people who are struggling with it.
Yeah.
And you need a punishment where you have to lose money now to, like, seal the deal? Doesn't make any sense. The punishment is the consequence. Like that, God is smart enough to build a system that he doesn't need to every once in a while say, okay, let me get something on the outside to make it now. Meaning that porn itself won't have an inherent negative quality to it that will be experienced, and that is the experience of it. That is the consequence and punishment.
Yeah.
There isn't another thing that has to be built to it. The punishment for eating unhealthy is feeling bad. That's it.
Right.
You don't need another punishment.
Agreed.
So, but to a 4-year-old, that's too subtle. 4-year-olds can eat a lot of candy and feel great at the end of the day. We don't have that same
Yeah.
luxury at as we get
Yeah.
older. So we have to teach in those ways. That's what I meant by it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, in terms of understanding God, that's
Yeah.
another one that I think we screwed up a lot. I was thinking we have to teach kids as much as we do. We don't.
I really would like to create my own school. Like it's always been a dream, on a farm, like, with in nature and with like really catering to every kid and having elders teach the kids. And I don't know, this is a subject that is just, it's very, very painful to me. Very, very painful because I think what we've done, it boils down to the essential voice versus a social voice. The essential voice is what we're born with. We know who we are. We know what we're here for. We know ourselves. We don't ask permission to spit our food all over the wall. We don't like it, we spit it all over the wall. Like it's just we live by urge, and then we hear our first no, and it's like, wait, what I want isn't true. Like what does no mean? And then we get this shoulds. You should sit. No, you should sit at your desk. You should not stand. Now you can stand. Now you can eat. No, you don't eat now. And so by the time we are, finished 12th grade, we don't even remember who we are. We're in a complete social voice. And the problem with that, it's such a sheker because it's the essential voice is your unique gifts that you came with. And we basically knock all that out
Oh,
during.
that's fascinating perspective. I got it.
Yeah. So like it's astounding to me that you got through that system and managed to keep your own integrity of who you are, your own unique talents and gifts, and you're doing it. This is beautiful.
Right. I definitely credit that a lot to my father. He had a just kind of marches to his own beat. He didn't really it, he wasn't caught up in the whole social thing.
Beautiful.
So not yeah, there was just he felt certain things and that was the way he was going to do it and that's it.
Yeah. So if we do need social voice.
For sure, for sure. It's
We
not
need, people would be driving on the sidewalks if we didn't have the social voice, but it's so out of proportion. The social voice is like 90% of who most people think they are. And then they have like this maybe 5 or 10%, like a little voice and like, this is what I like. This is who I am. And they forget. And I think we were talking, I just wanted to make sure I said this about Judaism. Like there is Kabbalah Soul. That exists. There is,
But Kabbalah Soul is of God, not of the teachers.
right.
Right.
Correct.
When it's communicated, whenever it was communicated to me as a child, it wasn't Kabbalah Soul of God. It was
Right.
always said I should have Kabbalah Soul of the teacher.
100%.
That
Right.
In the origin, that's not what it's talking about.
I'm with you. I mean, there is an element of our DNA that's like Nasev and Nishma. We just said we're going to do it. We didn't say why, and it wasn't like a feel-good thing all the time. But it's out of proportion right now. It's like so much guilt and fear and punishment and just not fun and like just a little bit of, okay, it's also wonderful. Like, and it has to be the opposite. It has to be, there can be like a little like, yeah, I dress sneeze because it's the right thing to do or whatever it is. There can be an element of that, but it's like, it's so disproportionate and twisted at this point. So I just wanted to make sure to say like something about there is something to be said about rules, and rules are good. We live with rules. We have to have some rules, but the rules have taken
primacy.
It's off, and our kids are showing it. They're saying it. They're not afraid to say it. This is off. This isn't working. Goodbye.
And when you say kids are saying it, what do you mean?
With their
They're
behavior.
leaving.
Yeah, just like this isn't true. What you're teaching us isn't even true.
Right. I've thought that and said that instead of like relegating those who are not following the system to kind of the sidelines, we should bring them forward and hear from them saying, what about this is not working? Because
yes.
if we believe a lot of the ideas that are shared in it, for example, that we are souls and we're spiritual and we're spiritually inclined and there's a inherent connection to godliness or whatever we'll call it, the Pintla Yid, then that exists in that person. Pushing them to the side is saying, oh no, this person doesn't have it, let me shut them up. No, let's find out what about this isn't working for them.
Yeah.
And very often it's not working for a lot of the other people who say it's working for as well. There's a lot to learn from those people, and we've made the mistake, I think, of pushing them to the side. But a lot is changing. Also, there's a lot of hopeful voices. What's interesting though is you came to this these from healing people suffering.
Came to what?
These ideas.
I probably came a lot with my own suffering.
Your own, right? Your own and others.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of goes hand in hand. And the reason I'm saying that is because you're watching someone suffering, and then there's the introduction of this idea that alleviates that suffering, which meant that idea was the suffering.
Okay, explain that.
So, for example, I've worked with many people who struggle with porn, and you mentioned the letter to God. So I'll tell many people who grow up religious, write a letter to God, and don't be afraid to start it with, strong words.
I'm angry. Yeah.
Sometimes stronger words.
Okay.
Whatever needs to be said, say. And what do you mean, how can I talk to God that way? I said, because that's a real relationship. If my kid's upset, I shouldn't be able to handle I hate you, I can handle it. Why couldn't God handle it?
Right.
Say it. If that's what's on your heart, if that's the way you feel, you're gonna wake up in the morning, Maidani Lifnacha. I don't feel Maidani Lifnacha. I feel like I hate you for setting me up. That's what I feel like. I hate you for giving me a sex drive and rules around sexuality. So now I feel like a disgusting person. Okay, great. So start there and see how and see where it goes, because that's a real relationship. So what I'm saying is, and now if that idea opens something up for this person and gives them a sense of healing, then it means that the earlier idea was causing the pain and suffering. The earlier idea that God couldn't be spoken to in that way, that we couldn't have a real dialogue and relationship, that somehow we had to tiptoe around this being, be it whatever it is, tiptoe around God and be afraid of a bad action or a bad thought or a bad speech. That was causing the person suffering, because once I removed it, then now here you have a person who's happy and free and very often not watching porn or watching porn less, right? That's the irony, right? That's what I meant by it.
I just had this discussion with a client the other night, and he was talking about porn, and I was like, porn is the laziest way of feeling alive. It's the laziest way of feeling better. Like, you're undeveloped. Like, go find some hobbies that you love and do them. I don't know if that sounds radical to you.
No, it's not radical, but it depends where someone is in the process.
Because I don't know what it feels like to have that addiction, and it's chutzpahdik for me to say it, but I think a lot of addictions, personally, are just our culture is just we're undeveloped. When you're doing, there's joy and there's pleasure. Pleasure is nice. It's great. Everyone needs pleasure. But sometimes pleasure becomes something that makes you feel not the opposite, makes you feel terrible. But then there's joy. Joy is something that when you do what brings you joy, you don't need to eat, sleep, go to the bathroom. Like, you are immersed and you're bringing that energy to this world. Find what brings you joy. Bring that. Do more of that. I had another young man.
I guess depends where someone is in the process.
Yeah.
Depends where someone is. If the addiction is at full force and someone is almost in control of it, then hearing that can add another layer of...
Well, I'll give you an example. My son's friend called me and he's like, I need to see you. I need to see you. I'm going crazy. And I'm like, okay, come over. And he's like, all I do is think about sex. Like, everywhere I go, every woman I see, every single woman I see, that's all that goes through my mind. And I was like, And then I was like, can you tell me a time in your life that you were doing something that really explained to him the joy and the pleasure? Tell me something you've done that you really love doing. And he's like, when I was a kid, I did woodworking. So I'm like, okay. I took him into like a little meditation, like feel the saw in your hand and listen to the sounds and smell the wood chips. And And I had him really in it. I'm like, are you thinking about sex? And he's like, no. I'm like, oh, how come? It's like, because I'm having fun. I feel alive. I feel I'm enjoying myself. I'm like, oh, interesting.
Right. There's a craving there. And the
Yeah,
craving is
yeah,
for an emptiness. And if it's not there,
yeah,
then yeah, I mean, that's why I do this. Right. And
yeah.
although today I don't live with the addiction or the urges or the strong desires there, but
That's amazing, by the way. That's amazing.
to not,
Yeah, that you don't have that anymore. What a inspiration.
that's the purpose of healing, right? That's what we're
This is
trying to do.
beautiful. Because
That's
I don't know about, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can tell you that like things that I've struggled with, a lot of them are still there. They're just easier to handle now. Like it's like if something would throw me off for a month before, now it will throw me off. Then it would throw me off for a week, and then it would throw me off for a day, and then at this point it might throw me off for a minute. But it still can throw me off. It's still, and then sometimes there are things that don't, but there are things that just keep, like people say, you've been doing this work for, I've been doing this work for so many years. I can't believe this is still here. And that's also real. That,
no, that is very real.
yeah.
What I'm referring to specifically is around the obsessiveness around it.
Okay.
I don't think if I engaged in it today, I would have um, like a muted reaction to it. Meaning, some people may be able to function watching it occasionally. I
Right.
imagine there are many people who are. I wasn't able to.
Okay.
I don't think I can go back to that. It's not
Yeah.
in my life. But I
Sure.
don't struggle with the desires, with the urges, with the
That's
obsessiveness
amazing.
around it. But and I
So cool.
some of it is doing these kind of things that are this is my fun, this is my joy, this is what I love to do. You know I I
Do you see
find a
private
certain
clients?
no, I end up speaking to a lot of people.
We're going to turn this around now.
You could, yeah, sure. I end up speaking to a lot of people. And every once in a while I'll take on not like a private client, but someone who I'll like feel like they're there, and it's okay, let me spend some time with them. Maybe I'll talk to them, you know, a few times a month and see if, it can help move them along to that next space. But I don't coach. Like I don't
Okay.
have, you know, I don't have a practice.
Cool.
Mm. But you've been wanting to do that a couple times. Maybe I'll give you the opportunity to, even though I've been talking more than I do in most interviews for whatever reason. Um, but if you wanted to ask a few questions, go ahead.
Okay. Except that I just choked on my water.
Take your time. Gives you time to think.
Like your father, I just like his not being into the social. Is there more in that helped you? Like, was it personal or was it just following him or was it stuff he told you?
Um, it's something that I've noticed that I've gotten from him. It wasn't an instruction by him. It wasn't I don't know if it's something. I don't think he and I ever spoke about it. Just when you commented on that, I said, "Hey, that was something that was probably easier for me than most because my father, I don't know if he naturally has that or if he worked on that. Maybe his father had it. Who knows how he got it, but he doesn't seem to be very moved by people's opinions of him. He's more guided by his, what he believes to be the right action."
I don't find that very often. Like my father was like that too, and it was everything for me. Like my parents were both Chuva, and they were very much their own people. Like they came to it with their, they were very high visions, high meaning, high very spiritual, and they didn't look at people for their norm. They were very, my father said, never look at people because they will always disappoint you. If you're looking for truth, look at like the Torah, look at what's MS, Torah, Tzaddikim, but people will always disappoint you in the end, which has really carried me through my life a lot because I've seen, there's so much to see. There's just,
So as not to take it too personal, so as not to be too disappointed.
as not like they don't represent the truth. Like if someone behaves badly, they don't represent the truth. Like people aren't my.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's important. Be able to pull that apart because many people speak in the name of God
Right.
and then we think it's God. And then we don't like God. But it's so easy to speak in the name of God. It's the easiest thing to do. Just say,
Right.
God says do X, Y, and Z.
Right. And I don't get bent out of shape. Thank
Right.
God. And I see people who literally pull off their shades after stuff like that. And I'm just like, it's people. People are people.
Right. Right. So you attribute that to your father. Just
Totally. Yeah.
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 right. There's Torah. There's a truth. I don't know if this is true. You talk about your Torah. I feel like the case for me is when we talk about halacha, let's say, like, is it describing a person or is it describing an ideal?
Mm.
Meaning it's so easy to say, oh, we should do all these things. And okay, maybe someone should do all those things, but is that actually possible for someone to do all this? So when someone doesn't, then they feel miserable and terrible and like they're going to be punished. Was that what halacha was written for? Meaning, really expecting that the average person, I'm asking this as a question, really expecting that the average person was going to do all of these things? Or was it saying, okay, let's have a book that we can preserve, right? That's here, that's charting the course of an ideal person. And then at any point in time, check where you are along that way. We don't have to mess with the ideal, but to pretend that everyone is doing this and everyone who can't is a failure, that's tough. That's
No.
rough.
No, I think it should be like, it's an opportunity to be the most refined that you could be. If you didn't take that opportunity and you're not ready or whatever, like that's not no one's business except your own. And I think it should be a personal relationship to it and see it as a beautiful thing. Like, wow, this is like amazing. How do I feel when I'm doing halakha, or how do I feel when I don't? And I get to see myself in my own, chart my growth and chart where I'm at and know where I'm at. Maybe it's a way of knowing where you're at. I don't know. Or maybe it's a relationship with it. What's your relationship with it? If the punishment and fear is definitely not working anymore.
No, it's not working.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Yeah.
It's hurting a lot of people. And
Yeah.
and it's resulting in probably more people doing what they're afraid of. My wife says that the first time she ate non-kosher, she was sure she was going to get punished. Like something terrible would happen to her. And she was young when she did. And when she didn't, she was like, oh, okay, so the whole thing is not true. I mean, that's essentially what you're leaving someone with.
That's what that created.
Right. Yeah, what is the harm in just saying the truth?
There's so much fear. I guess.
That's what's so interesting is that I say Hashem Elokeichem Emes, right? What is God is truth, meaning the truth is godly, lies are not. Right? That's the way I understand it. The Torah is Emes, but I felt like I was definitely lied to intentionally. The person who was telling it to me knew they were telling me a lie, but they thought it was for my benefit. Meaning, as a child in school, and it's probably still going on in many yeshiva systems, is someone is knowingly lying to the children, telling them something they know not to be true for their benefit. But of course, that's not godly. Like, how is that?
Can you think of what could have been beneficial for you at the time?
I think at different ages, there are different things, right? So something could be age appropriate as long as it's age corrected. Meaning, you can tell me something that's, if I still believe it at 10, wouldn't be a good idea. So tell me at 5 and then make sure at 10 I know something different.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to talk to me about how babies are made and give me one theory at 7 and another one at 13, that's perfectly fine. But don't let me go into adulthood with the 7-year-old idea.
Yeah.
So just kind of keep up. Right?
I think something just popped into my head and that is love. Love. Like love is missing, I feel, a lot in all of this. It's like you have a teacher, they're teaching you, maybe what they're teaching you is true, and maybe what they're teaching you is good for you. But then you see their behavior and they don't love you, and they, are unhappy, and they have no love in them. And then it's like all of it feels like nothing. All of it feels like,
That is true as well, right? That is true as well. Meaning there's a lot. This, I remember Chase Taub. I don't know if you know Chase Taub. I'm
yeah,
close with him, and he said, if I speak to one more kid who grew up in yeshiva, went through a yeshiva system, and he found God in a church basement, in a 12-step room in a church basement, I'm gonna lose my mind, right? And what? So what is that ingredient that he's talking about? What is someone getting? And it's that relationship that many of us have
yeah,
had. I found it in 12 steps. I found God in 12 steps. Isn't that crazy?
yeah,
I only when I started going in 12 steps
so
was I
shook.
comfortable saying that I believe in God. I have a relationship with God. I feel like I can take something and put it on him, and that can actually be physical. I can feel one way
Yeah,
and say, you know what, this one's yours. And that can actually be an
yeah,
interaction and a dialogue, and something shifted inside me, and now it's somewhere else. That only took place after the 12 steps, and I went through
that's
the full yeshiva
so
system up
wrong.
until smicha.
I'm sorry.
So I got a lot of good from it. And today I'm very excited about it in the sense that I feel like there's a lot of language and ideas that I'm now able to, incorporate back in. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. A lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
don't don't have the experience.
yeah,
And maybe there's some things we can do even within the community itself in terms of, I had said, ask the people who are outside of the community, or kind of leaving, saying, why did you leave? In companies do exit interviews, because you're finally going to get the honest thing. Hey, what was not working in this company? We should do some exit interviews in the from communities. But also within communities, and go around the shul and say, how many people are comfortable, how many people speak to God in a language that's not the siddur? How many do that? I mean, just, you pray to God 3 times
right.
a day. How many times do you pray in your own words?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm not
Oh,
you. I'm
oh, yeah,
saying,
yeah,
if we ask that in
right,
a from
absolutely.
room, I mean, that's
Yeah.
like, that would be a basic, I
Or how
think.
about instead of the scale, everyone gets to make up their own tefillah? Of like, just make your own tefillah up. Let's do that. You can do that at 5 years old. You can tell the Mora what what you want to say to God, and let that be your tefillah instead of the scales. This is being the scales.
You're traumatized from the
I'm
scales.
traumatized, and I see it over and over. But getting back to that woman that I spoke to last night, I had her then write a letter to God of how she wants it to be between her and God. And just if anyone wants to do that, I think it's just a great exercise, a pre Rosh Hashanah exercise, or really any time.
Yeah, we're recording this a kind of couple days before Rosh Hashanah, but it'll be aired
Oh yeah,
probably well after it. Yeah.
okay. Well, for next Rosh Hashanah, or for whenever you get
But
there.
you were
Yeah,
saying a good exercise would be,
the writing the letters.
yeah, you were,
Was I saying something else?
no, it felt like you were explaining the letters, and then I interrupted.
Just no, just to write the letter the way it feels right now, and then write a
Oh,
new
how you
one.
would like it to be.
How you'd like to be, and almost like put that in your sitter. Read that every day before you daven.
Right. No, I think it's I think it's great.
I feel
And
kind of like talking like we've talked a lot about Judaism and about a lot of Yiddishkeit, and it's funny. It's ironic to me because I feel like I'm on a journey of really figuring it out for myself, and I don't want to preach to anybody because I don't think I got it. I think everybody, we're all just like souls on a journey and broken, and it's hard.
you
There's
know,
no preachy perfect thing. It's just like hang in there and do whatever you can, and know that you are God. Like, you're a chelik elokami mamish, and you have a part of God in you. God, it's not God is Santa Claus and I'm this creation that he hates. Like, this is not, you know, this is wrong. This is just a story. And we are not this story. It's a construct that has been created somehow.
right? So someone asked me if I'm like because sometimes I'll have conversations like this and give certain thoughts about my childhood, about my experience. Like, do I have some sort of problem with the frum community? Do I, like, is there something that I'm angry at, something that I want to change? And I said, whatever's working for someone, God bless. I'm I'm only here to share something that can be liberating to someone who's stuck. So if someone is in a prison of shame, even when I talk about porn, I'm careful. If it's working for someone, God bless you. I have nothing to say to that
Right.
person. But for someone who's not and wants out, but they're in a prison of shame, so then I'll tell them, my experience has been, and it's been proven out through many others, the way out is to talk about it. So talk, and that's been my experience. If it's working for you, I have nothing to say. And the same is true with religion. There are certain things that I found that were very prison like, and there were certain ideas that helped liberate me in some way, to fry out, no, to help liberate me in some way, to truly become, to feel free, and to feel like I'm living my purpose, and to feel like I'm doing good, and to feel happy and joyful and purposeful. When a lot of those things were make me feel depressed and addicted and anxious, and those things I share, and for those who want it, take it by all means. But it's not
Yeah.
it's not a
No
new
one's
religion.
got the formula. I think no one's got the exact formula. No one's got it. No one cracked the code yet in how to live a perfect life and be perfectly, I just think it's the time in history for every person to understand that we are our own healers, and we have been given every tool, including Torah mitzvahs, including psychology and whatever other tools are out there. Like, use them. Like, don't look outside for a band-aid all the time. Like, you can heal yourself. You can help
Right.
yourself. There's more than ever.
And when something's not working, don't be afraid to try something else.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong, you come back. I mean,
Yeah.
become the master of return. If you watch the documentary, it's a Bill Maher documentary called Religulous.
No.
So it's like it sounds. Um, so he's an atheist, and he's coming from that perspective to a degree. I'll tell you why, to a degree, because he ends the talk and he says, I'm not actually challenging. I'm not here challenging religion. I forget exactly how he said. He said, it's just where others preach certainty, I want to preach doubt. Just have a little doubt in some of these things and hold some of these ideas just a little bit looser, and I'm fine. But it's that certainty around it. I'm going to append to that. I interviewed Rabbi Dov Ber-Pinson a few weeks ago, and somehow the conversation of Amalek came up. And he said that Amalek, we're always taught, what is Amalek? Amalek is doubt. So a lot of people go to a place and say, okay, we can't have doubt. Amalek is doubt. We need certainty. So they think the antidote to Amalek is certainty. So he says, but that's not true. He says, because tikkun has the same letters as tinuk, right? So tikkun,
Right.
to heal something, is the same as childlike, meaning we're returning to a childlike state, and the healing of something is to return to a childlike state about something.
Love
Certainty
that.
is not a childlike
Wow.
emotion, but wonder is. So he says the way we heal doubt is not through certainty, it's through wonder, because doubt has a cynical um, kind of, I don't know, tone to it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so wrong. What are you doing? Ask the same question. Ask the same question. Just use wonder as the undertone of that statement or question instead of cynicism. And now you've healed that. And to me, that was very fascinating. Is for many of us, I've heard about Amalek my whole life and how doubt messes with us. But the antidote is not certainty. When we go to that place of certainty, how do we know? We don't know anything. We know
Thank you.
nothing.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this whole thing is a fabrication of my own imagination or yours, and you can't prove to me it's not either. We
Right.
don't know if this is a longer dream or a shorter dream. In between, we have no clue.
Right.
We don't know anything.
Yeah.
But we could have a lot of wonder around stuff, especially if people are suffering.
So this reminds me of when I was 14 and I was going to a school that there was no Hasidus, and I was like just lost, and I was like, I don't want to be from. Not because I love Shabbos, I love kosher, but I don't want this Torah doesn't make sense. And it's a long story, and I ended up in Crown Heights. I went to Beis Rivka for a couple of years and learned my first Hasidus and had my first like really listening to the Rebbe's words and for the first time. And the Rebbe said something like, when I was at my peak of just feeling like so confused and feeling like an apikaris, feeling like if anyone really knows how I feel, they'll think I'm not bikuras, And I went to a Farbrengen, and the Rebbe said, was saying something about how Hashem hides himself in nature, so we'll go looking for him. Because when you go looking for him, when you go looking for something, you get a much deeper understanding. So it's like what you're saying is also, it's like, this is the DNA of our world. These people who are coming out and trying to say they know and trying to make it certain are robbing us of the journey, of the mystery of finding the pieces for ourselves, finding God, he wants us to find him. And maybe it's annoying for him that there is these people who are just like, here he is. He's here. Like, let me look.
I think that's
let
the
me
test.
let me take a
No, I think that's the test.
Yeah.
It's meant to be kind of interesting, and that's the test. Will we get distracted from someone else's voice and not listen to our own heart?
Yeah. And we all get to. This is the journey. We get to do this journey as long as we're breathing and as long as we're here. This is the journey. So don't rob people of their journeys. Give them what's true. Give them what's real. Don't manipulate and try to, have people do a certain thing. It's not working.
Right.
Because everyone is needed. Everyone's natural self is needed. And there's a place for everyone.
Correct. Who's that? Who said we're all walking each other home? Have you heard that saying?
Yeah.
And then we need people who are, developing their skills. A few weeks ago, I was sitting here with Mayor K, and Mayor and I connected at a time in his life where he was really struggling, and there were times where he, leaned on me for support in that way. And then we had spoken right after a breathwork session, which he led, which was very powerful and healing for me. So we shared about that, kind of the synchronicity, the coolness of that there was a time where it felt like I was helping him, but what was I helping him to find something that I needed later, just a little bit later. So I was truly helping myself, but he needed to go through his path and find something that, was true for him in order to bring me back something. And on we do this. I think the more we have people who are comfortable in that search and comfortable knocking on doors and making some mistakes, but then coming back and finding something that's true for them, the more we'll have something valuable for all of us.
Maybe we're coming to a place where the fear isn't working because it's not necessary anymore. Maybe this generation, this just came to me, but like this coming generation is really strong and they really can do it. If we can just trust them, trust our children, trust these kids they know what they're doing. They're going to do the right thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As opposed to the fear of like, we have to keep everyone in this cage and like they won't be from and they won't do, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll even be more embodied in it than we were. Like maybe
I think more than maybe.
I think the fear to go.
I think more than maybe. I think there are many people who are because of that. Because of that, they've gone on that path and they've found certain things within Judaism that connect to them. I mean, the amount of people I've worked with many religious people through 12 steps over the years. Now I do much less of that, but for many years when I was active in the 12 steps, I was sponsoring people, and I didn't only sponsor Jewish people, but it happened a lot that I did sponsor Jewish people, and finding people repeatedly. It wasn't one or two or three, it was many who did not find God, who left it from Judaism, but then reconnected. And when they reconnected, then they found ways to incorporate their Judaism too. It didn't look exactly like it did when they were growing up, but it was true for them, and it was integrated into who they were as a person. It's been for many people the case.
I love that. I have a son who, like, when my husband passed away, he was a train wreck. He just put his hoodie over his head, bought a pack of cigarettes, and went into a room and I didn't see him. So not only was I sick over that loss, I was like, what's going to happen to my whole world and what's going to happen to my kids? And then I realized I cannot afford this. I need to be okay. And so I did some work around it and then came up um, with this script that I sort of went into my son's room and said to him, and now I teach this to parents all the time. I went into his room and I just said, there's so many ways to grieve and you're doing it your way and I trust you. Smoke as much as you want, drink as much Coke as you want, do it as long as you need. You know where I live. You're smart. You're going to figure this out. And I trust you. And I walked out of the room and I didn't look back. And I was okay inside about him. I really was. It wasn't lip service. It was real. Like I had to really feel it and then I could say it and then I could walk away and feel it. And thank God, he's pulled himself through such a gruesome journey. And he's got more skills than ever because he found them his way. And I tell parents this all the time, trust your kids. Because we had a guy at the workshop who was like, I messed up my kids, I messed up my kids, I messed up my kids. I said, if you think you messed up your kids, then when you see your kids, you're seeing mess. You're seeing them as messed up. So your kids are walking around the world feeling messed up. My dad thinks I'm messed up. How's that feel? I said, how about you look at them and say, wow, you've been through a lot. I own it. I own what I did. I'm sorry. I'm working on myself. And I know you're going to be okay because you're made out of good stuff. You're smart. You're beautiful. You're strong. You're going to be okay. And then they feel empowered.
When you said earlier you did some work around it, right, and relating to the discomfort with your son, and then from that led to, I guess, the awareness that I'm going to communicate to him differently. I'm going to say something different.
Yeah.
So what does that look like practically? The work around it. What do you mean by that?
So I actually, my son-in-law is a coach, Matti Koenigsberg, and I went to him and I was just like, help me, I feel sick. And then he facilitated me. And then I did the work, internal work. So yeah, I guess I made it sound like I did it myself, but I didn't. I reached out. I needed help. And I did my work. That was me doing my work. And then I was able to help him.
Neat.
Yeah.
And then that realization came from you, the recognition that maybe this is a better way of communicating with him.
Yeah. Like I was okay. And then I could give that over to him. And then I just kept it there throughout, watching all the struggling, watching my kids struggle. I don't wish it on anybody. It's so hard, but this idea has kept me and kept them, I think. And just seeing their stages and what they're going through and just trusting them. I trust them. And I think it's so empowering. I still have to. I have 6 kids.
And the one you're talking about is how old?
22.
Right, got it. Yeah, it's a rough age.
Yeah, but he's like he's a staff member on my workshop.
Oh, neat.
I mean, he has been. Now he's probably going away for the year, but yeah, and then kids. The struggle is real. But instead of being all this fear, let's trust our kids. Let's trust this generation. This is a special generation. They have so little leadership and so little to hold on to, and they're gonna do it. They're gonna bring us into the next part of the world.
Bring us out of this Egypt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an observation I had and I made. I've made it here with on this podcast, but not everyone listens to everything. So, is that one of God's gifts to us? Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's a test, a challenge. Is free choice. He said, "Here, I'm going to give you the ability to choose, or appear to have the ability to choose." And how much of the programming, whether it's authority or religion or government, trying to rob us of that free choice. And obviously there are certain things that we do want to take off the table, right? Like killing someone else. Like let's remove certain things off the table because it's too irreversible.
Right.
But as much as possible, we don't want to remove it completely. Like let's just put everyone in a cage in their own cage. No one can kill anyone else. But in many ways, we're doing, I feel, too many things that rob people of their free choice when God's gift to us was free choice. Like in the name of God, we're saying, I'm going to take away your free choice. But God could have created that world. He didn't need your help to create a world where people felt like he was,
Yeah.
had a mountain over their head. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let
Absolutely.
that was our let's
Yeah.
let them have free choice and let's see where it goes. Let us have free choice and see where it goes. So in terms of
I
the
think
trust.
this is part of like what I call the new operating system. This new operating system, like we need to move into, we need to let go a lot, letting go of what we're holding on to so tight, and open to the future and open to what's happening, and stop with the doom and gloom. It's just keeping us stuck and bringing bad energy. Like each of us are responsible for bringing our gifts, bringing good energy, adding whatever we can. And instead of like that fear and that holding, it's not necessary anymore. I'm going to stick with that. It's not necessary anymore. Amen.
Right, meaning very likely by your same logic, then there was a time where that approach was necessary.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that was somehow in the foundation and in the like horse training, or like you got to train like like an unbridled whatever, and we did it. Now it's done, and let's move into let's what is the Friedrich Rebbe said, like we have to live with the times.
Right.
Let's live with the times, and let's
Yeah, meaning it's
empower.
happening anyway.
Yeah.
Right, it's happening.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that are happening anyway. So
There are a lot of things happening anyway.
people can rail against AI and I don't know, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and all these things. A lot of it's happening anyway. So you can cry about it or figure out.
Right. Or even
Yeah.
like, going back a little bit, like the iPhone craze, or everybody being so afraid of the iPhone, and like, okay, now what? You want to live your life, and you want to stand in front of a tsunami with your hands up and just be like, sorry, don't come. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So how can we work with it, and how can we empower them to make good choices, and know that they will?
And you feel like a lot of that is trust.
Yeah, and belief in them. Yeah, and that just like you made good choices, your kids will.
Yeah. Eventually, we're going to need to be independent, right? Meaning, eventually, all of
Yeah.
us are going to need to be independent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
figuring that out.
Totally.
How has your husband's loss changed you? And you were in this work before, and obviously you had certain perspectives. Then you go through something massive like that. How has it changed you?
Oof. It changes me every day. It's there's a book called The Wild Edge of Sorrow. I think it's an incredible book by Francis Weller, and it's really like the opportunities in the grief and in the deepest pain. There are treasures. There are opportunities to find like the edges of myself. I've found a lot of my edges of who I am, um, and it's an ongoing journey, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard, but it's like seeing things that I can do that I never thought I could do. It's there are treasures in it, but it's not easy.
Is there anything you're comfortable sharing? Something
Anything.
specific?
Oh, about
Yeah, a treasure meaning something specific that you have today that you would not have
like
had.
I can do
A
bills.
treasure.
That kind of treasure. I never thought I could do a bill in my life. I'm like, I'm not shaking anymore. I sit and I do my bills, and I'm not like in the beginning. I was just like shaking. I never did a bill in my life. Right before he died, I was like, if he ever dies, I will have no clue what to do. It was just like a premonition kind of thing, I guess. Um, and the strength I have, and like being okay with being with myself, as opposed to like in a always needing him, because I always felt like we were just like always needed each other, and
Did you
I
work
can be alone.
together in the healing work?
So he worked for the Chafke. He was a mashgiach, but he also was a coach, and we
Oh,
did like
gotcha.
a lot of healing work together. Yeah, we did.
Gotcha.
We used to see couples for free. That was our mitzvah that we did, and we worked together a lot.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it's not. This isn't not an easy one. I used to think like if someone lost their husband, they probably didn't like them. Like I don't know. It was like my own maybe way of dealing with it, but yeah, this is really really hard. But it's I'm choosing. I realize I have a lot of perspective. Life is short. Trying to do whatever I can while I'm here. I'm less stuck in the moments and more like I have more patience. I've learned a lot of patience. I never had patience. I have patience now somehow. I just see that everything with time, everything unfolds as it should somehow.
Right.
That's a good answer. How's that? How has it changed me?
So,
I cry a lot. I scream, I cry. Yeah, I've, I do all that.
yeah.
I grieve hard.
Yeah. I was in a workshop, a retreat for a few days, and they had a grief portion, but the grief was really related to any loss someone had suffered, and that can mean very many things to different people. And it was hundreds of people in the retreat. I don't know, maybe 400 or 500, and that was by far the most intense portion of it. Where, the facilitator led a meditation around it, and was very nondescript, very general. Just think about something you have lost. So maybe it was a relationship, or maybe it was moving as a child and, losing some friends, or maybe it
Yeah,
was, I don't know, a home or a job or money or whatever.
yeah.
And it was an old men's, um, an old men's retreat. Um, and I mean, the grief, it turned violent, actually. It was like, that's how, like, violent with rage. Just the raw energy in the room was unbelievable. But yeah, it was probably the best words I can use to describe it was violent rage,
Wow. Yeah, I've had that.
and but very very healing for many of us. But
Yeah.
violent rage,
I think because of what I've been through, a lot of my like clients and people feel like they could tell me anything now more than, and they always did, but now it's even more. It's like sometimes I have to brace myself because like there's a lot of painful things that happen in this world,
mm-hmm.
and I've held a lot of things that I probably couldn't have held before. Just like hellish type of pain, and it's real. It's
Right.
real.
So as a healer, it's definitely sharpened your blade.
Definitely sharpened my blade. Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of tools, you said you have tons of different tools, many different tools. You reference breath work. Are there some other tools that are some of your, I don't know, some of your favorites, or some of
So
one go to?
I believe very much in replacing old, like your experiences created your brain patterns. So creating a new experience that replaces the old experience is extremely effective and healing. So even like I had a client in the pool, and I was holding her in a hammock, and I was just rocking her, and she was like just going, I never had a mother, I never had anyone to love me, and I'm like, I'm loving you right now. I'm mothering you. Feel it. Like, feel it. This is what it feels like. Take it in. Like, have this experience in your repertoire. And
Did you know going in with the hammock and the pool that that's what you were going for? Or you
um,
started with that and that's what came up.
I started with that, and that's what came up. It was like she was on a private. I do private retreats. We do
Mm.
retreats with a lot of groups, but we also do private retreats. Um, and that was on a private retreat, and I was just putting together like a whole slew of different modalities for her to do. Um, and it's so create like feel it. We did a rebirth on a retreat with a young girl who was in foster care her whole life and was never held by a mother, and we did like this little birth canal kind of funky thing we
Mm.
do. And when she came out, we like chose to role play. We had like two parents, and she sat in the mom's lap for 3 hours,
Wow.
and afterwards she said, now I know what it feels like to be held by a mother, and I'll be able to hold my children because I have a frame of reference for it.
Beautiful.
So if you have no frame of reference for something that you want, and then you experience it, you're like, oh, this is how it feels. Okay. So I really love doing that. I also have a biomat, acoustic mat that like recenters your nervous system. So sometimes I'll do a coaching session on the mat so that they can get, hit people up in as many senses as possible. I think is really important in creating new experiences, creating change.
To hit people with as many experiences, senses.
So it's like we're like we're talking, but then if there's also something else going on at the same time while you're talking, then the experience goes deeper. So if you're on an acoustic mat and we're talking, and the acoustic mat is giving you this vibration and this very high frequency music that's like just centering your whole nervous system, then everything I said, it's like hypnotic suggestion. Everything I said is almost like a hypnosis. I don't believe in hypnosis so much in the way that it takes away your free choice. And, you need to like own your process. I'm very into that. Like, I'm not your Band-Aid. I will hold space. I will give you this space to heal, but ultimately you choose what you want to do. I'll always ask permission. Is this what you want to do? We could either do this or we could do that. And I think that's also part of owning your healing is being able to choose, not having someone put it on you.
Right.
Um,
It's interesting what you
yeah.
said about the senses. There's an ayahuasca shaman that I know well, and he said, a shaman's job is to overwhelm your five senses so that you activate your sixth.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Because shaman's playing music,
Right.
often burning different things, or
Exactly.
so there's smells, there's
Right.
sounds,
Right.
right? Sometimes some of the sounds, a drum over you is activating. There's a feeling to it, right? So this touch,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. I love that.
yeah,
I did that with someone recently also, just like I had this little essential oil from like Israel, and it was so weird because it was like just in reach, and this person was just crying about a loss, and a loss of a very special loved one, and the crying was it was so intense, and I was like, it felt like it would never end, and I just grabbed that little bottle and I just put it by her nose, and I was just like, smell this, like just sniff it in. I'm like, let's go visit the person. Where are they? And then we went to Gan Eden, and I'm like, smell, this is Gan Eden. Like, this is what it smells like. It was really good essential oil. But it was like creating that. Now they have a new neural pathway to like a new way of relating to the loved one,
right.
because like now there's a higher place that they can go and see the loved one.
Being able to reaccess it afterwards with the
Yeah.
smell. Right.
Yeah. So that when you go back to the memory or when you go back to the situation, now you have some other ideas to play with in there. So like really working with the subconscious mind and creating new that's what we have to work with. We can't always change our circumstances. We can't change our life always. We can't, but what we can change is this. And we get to think our thoughts. No one can do it for us. We get to work with our thoughts. We get to work with what we got, and that's about it. Sometimes that's as good as it gets, is your thoughts around something. I was just saying this to someone the other day, like if you're depressed about something, you could meditate on someone who has it worse than you in some way, and then suddenly you're like, why would I be depressed, right? It's all like up here. So you can do a lot of mind bending and playing with your mind. That's what we get to do.
Interesting perspective.
I don't know if that sounded right.
I hear what you're saying. How does that account for things that live within the body?
So your thoughts actually change your physiology. Like think about it right now. If I give you a suggestion to think about a time that you felt peaceful, your body will feel peaceful, right? Or think about a time you had a struggle, your body will feel the struggle. So the mind body connection is everything. So your thoughts, the quality of your life can only be as good as the quality of your thoughts. So I work a lot with your thoughts. What are you thinking when you wake up in the morning? And really unearthing your thought patterns so that when they come, you can notice them. That's the awakening. Wake up, notice what's happening, notice what you're doing to yourself. Because if you don't notice, you can't change it.
Your thoughts on healers versus mental health experts, quote unquote.
This is not censored? Oh, don't ask me that. I think people need to trust themselves really deeply with all of this. Whoever you go to, whether they're a mental health professional or a healer or a shaman or a coach, it's all the same. Listen to yourself. Nobody should be telling you who you are, what you should do, and they need to be helping, not making it worse. And if you're feeling worse, leave them. Go somewhere else. That's like my long short answer.
Right.
This is a
Right. Just
heavy
in terms
subject.
of mental health.
This is a charged subject.
Right. In terms of
for me.
mental health experts, and what I'm going to say is not challenging mental health experts. It's challenging people who think that only mental health experts can heal. Right. Mental health experts is fine. But people who think that only if they're not a mental health expert, what relevance do they have in that space? So I would say that there are no mental health experts. It doesn't exist, because if it did exist, then we wouldn't have 80% of people with mental health problems.
Right.
Like, we couldn't say that there's a building expert if 80% of buildings collapsed.
Right.
There is no, meaning what I'm saying is there's some expertise. There's some. That's why we're up
My mom's a therapist, and she's a really good therapist, just saying. She just moved to Florida.
Sure.
She's
Meaning
a great therapist. So I have
there's some expertise.
a lot
Meaning
of that
some
in
people
my family.
some people have knowledge. They have information that can be helpful. But to pretend there's an expert on this subject,
correct,
it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because too many people are struggling. So where's the expert? Not an expert. There's some expertise. That's all.
And as long as there's ego, there can be a lot of mess ups. And I've seen many health professionals who have gone to school for years and years, as well as coaches, just mess people up, just with that ego. Like, if they don't know what to do with a person, they'll label that person. Oh, I don't know what to do with this person, so I'll just have to say they have a personality disorder. Or, there's a lot of messes out there, and people just have to be, again, trust yourself, go with what feels right to you. Because really, there's no rule. I think all generalizations are not true. Like, generalizations are not.
Generalizations are generally not true.
Generalizations are generally not true.
Let's be consistent.
That's what I think.
No, it's an area of, it's a sensitive area for me, because as I've been involved in different things, people have said this many times, where's the mental health expert? And some of the deepest healing I've had has been in 12 steps. I'm like, where is the mental health expert? Where is the guy? We're all addicts, all of us. And what we have is that some of us have, figured it out a little bit more than others. And then we kind of hold each other's hands, and we can hold each other accountable, where, in the early meetings, there weren't the sponsors and the sponsor. It wasn't, oh, hey, this guy has 20 years of sobriety, because it was a meeting that started 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So you had 4 people who came to meetings, and 2 of them said, I'll sponsor you and you'll sponsor me. And the other 2 said, I'll sponsor you and you'll sponsor me. The benefit was that they weren't that person. That's it. Not that they had 20 years of sobriety. It's right. Not my ego talking. I'm having someone else help me out with this.
What's the one Nakuda that really you think helped you so much from that?
From the 12 steps?
Yeah.
And there were so many different things. If there was one, certainly knowing that I'm not alone, like that. So seeing that there were other people who struggled the way I did now and were no longer there. So that was huge. And then the love and connection, that there was a space that you can go to, that I was able to go to, where people really cared and deeply cared. And that was, what a crazy concept, that I can be struggling. I can go to a meeting and I can ask a guy, like, hey, can I talk this thing out with you? And we'd grab coffee, and the guy would, we're there for an hour and a half, and then we each go our way, and there was no bill. Not that there's anything wrong with the bill sometimes, but There
Yeah.
was true understanding and, and true um, connection. There
Yeah.
was that.
That's why
And
retreats are so good. Group work is so important. Group work is that the love, the connection, the feeling not alone. That alone, it's like I always say, if you bring a bunch of people to a group, to a retreat, and you already win. You feed them, win win. Like you do a few like activities, like win win win. You do bonding exercise and dyads, like win 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 win. It's gonna be phenomenal. It's just gonna be great. People should give themselves that gift and go to groups, go to self-help groups.
right.
The being with a group is so satisfying. I think that's how we were supposed to be to begin with. I think that's how we were back in the day, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be facilitating my first retreat next month, so we'll see how that goes. Mayor K asked me if I would do one with him, and I said, "Yeah, let's try. Let's
What
see how it
kind of
goes."
retreat?
It'll be for men, and we'll see who comes. We'll see who
Oh,
comes, but there'll be a lot around nature, and I'm big on ice baths, and there'll probably be a sweat lodge, and um, so a little ice cold nature.
it's great. Yeah, win,
Yeah,
win, win,
breath
win,
work.
win.
Yeah, just
Yeah, get a bunch of drums, let everyone scream.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
some of
fire.
those
Be
things.
good.
But we'll see. Mayor has participated in a bunch of retreats. He has a lot of ideas, and I know I kind of know the beginning and the end. Meaning, I know what kind of people, like where I want them to be at walking in the door, and where I hope they'll be at when they leave. So the
Beautiful.
middle, I'm not so sure yet, but I'm sure we'll figure that out.
Rock on. That's
So
amazing. That's awesome.
good. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
supportive of it. All right. Anything else? Any last final questions for me? Do I have any final questions for you? So
Um,
is this one of one, or is this the first of many? Meaning, like, are you now?
I just try to show up wherever is needed. Like if I don't have an agenda, like I just maybe, maybe
Right.
I'll go where I need to go. I just have to keep myself in check and be real and be me and not look back. I'm sure I'm not going to enjoy watching this. I'm pretty sure about that.
I'm sure
Um,
many other people will. Though. I'm sure many people get a lot from this.
I, I hope it helps. I hope some of the things I said were helpful. You're still smiling, so that's good. Yeah, thank you so much for having me here and for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And it's exciting, very exciting for me, inspiring, and just the message of like wherever you've been, make it gold, make it good.
I
You
s-
have you can do it.
yeah, Schneer Hickson, who's been on this podcast as well, he shared with me a video of um, the Rebbe the other week, and it started with someone talking and saying they went into or I think they'd become from, and they had some things about their past that I may be putting in some of my own thoughts in here, but the idea I'll stay true to. And he went to the Rebbe, asking what to do, and he said, "Well, you're kind of the best person to deal with people who are struggling with that. So go back and and help people in that way." And
Yes.
then right after that, that short clip of the guy talking about his interaction with the Rebbe, there was a clip of the Rebbe speaking and saying that Baal Tshuva's going back to where you struggled and were able to help yourself out of, and then find people who are there and help them out of there. And that felt so different than, my parents are both Baal Tshuvas, that felt so different than the Baal Tshuva movement that um, I kind of grew up into, where I think for my parents and for many other Baal Tshuvas which came to the Chabad community, the worst thing to hear about them was that you noticed they were a Baal Tshuva. Like they wanted to mix in
Right.
really, really thoroughly.
Yeah.
Like, how did you know?
Right.
Did I not say Yankif? So they were, and here the video was basically suggesting the exact opposite. Like if there was that struggle there and you figured out a way out of that, some people don't, many people don't. I can tell you, like, some of the things I've been through, sexual abuse and sexual addiction, these are dark, dark places a lot of people don't get out of. And the fact that I was fortunate enough to, when looking back, there's certain things that were like, if not for that, if not for that, if not for that, then maybe I'm not here. Then it's like, wow, there's many other people still there. Can we go back? And who's going to do it better? Someone who's never been there, or someone who can look in my eyes and know, hey, I've been where you're at, and you don't have to live there. It's not a life sentence. So hopefully we
That.
get more of that.
Yeah, and I guess if I had to leave with one message that just came up for me as you were talking is, you are not your story. You are not your thoughts. You're a soul that happens to have a body and has a lot of power, and you don't have to be stuck by your story. It's just a story. Make a new story. You can do it. It's really,
Yeah, but incorporate it into your new story and incorporate the past into the
yeah.
story.
And I mean, if that story serves you, use it in your new story.
Yeah,
And if the story is your identity, it's not your identity. It's not your identity.
correct.
And I can't say that enough times. It's not who you are. And when you stop identifying it, then you have the space to explore who you are. And you're an infinite, infinite, infinite being with like unlimited potential. You know, we talk about expanded consciousness and expansion and all that. That's the buzzword, and that is true. We are expanding, and we're doing it. We're doing the work. And when you know who you are in that realm, like
Everything
I
becomes
like
possible.
kind of shamashina satabi taharahi. Like there's no story in the world that could change your soul, that
Correct.
could touch your soul. So get to know your soul. Be more of that. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate coming.
Thank you. It was an honor
Thank you.
and a pleasure.